If you look at the lines of work, I kind of break it out into three verticals or three buckets. The first is kind of national security and sovereignty. The second line of work is what I refer to as economic nationalism. The third, broadly, line of work is what is deconstruction of the administrative state.
We are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake. Oh, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people. They have no sources. They just make them up. They make up sources. They're very dishonest people.
Donald Trump fired up and taking aim at the media at CPAC Friday. And hours after that speech, the White House took action that really drove home the president's point. Joining me now to talk about all of this, Zerlina Maxwell, MSNBC political analyst. She's also the former director of progressive media for the Clinton campaign. Joe Watkins, former aide to President George H.W. Bush, and Rick Tyler, MSNBC political analyst. He's the partner and co-founder of Foundry Strategies. He's also the former spokesman for the Ted Cruz campaign. Before I get to CPAC, guys, I want to ask you about that Associated Press report that the Homeland Security Department found insufficient evidence that citizens of 7 Muslim countries included in the president's travel ban posed a terror threat to the U.S. This was in a draft report that the White House is calling incomplete. Zerlina, will this change anything for the new travel ban that we expect the president to announce next week?
I don't think it'll change what the administration itself does, but what I do think is that it will increase the amount of people in the American citizenry who come out into the streets to oppose this travel ban, because I think that every argument that the White House has put forth in terms of the reasoning behind this travel ban has been debunked by the facts, and that includes the Department of Homeland Security saying, look, the terrorists that are attacking our country, San Bernardino, for example, had nothing to do with the 7 countries that you're banning an entire religion coming into the country from. And so it's something that I think we're going to see more protests about, because we don't want to ban an entire religion from coming into the country. That's fundamentally un-American.
After the president's speech at CPAC that we heard there out of the break, the White House barred journalists from the New York Times, CNN, and Politico and other media outlets from attending a daily briefing. The White House says every media format has access to the information that came from the gaggle. It's worth noting other administrations have on occasion excluded certain journalists in the past. But Joe, does this make any sense to you? What's the strategy here?
Well, it's certainly unprecedented, but it's really, I think, a strategy on the part of the president and his team to really control going forward their message, and also to punish media outlets that don't play the way they want them to play. This is maybe it's been happening in the past, but in my lifetime, this is really unprecedented. I mean, for media outlets that are well known and well regarded to be kept out is just unprecedented. So this is a move by the White House to kind of punish folks who aren't playing the way they want them to play.
Rick, is that right? Is it unprecedented? And what effect does it have, in your view?
Well, it certainly is. I actually think I think Joe's being generous. I think it's far worse, actually. The reason you would talk about the fake media all the time is because you want to discredit the media. And it's beginning to feel very preemptive to me. That is, there is something in future story that's coming, believe it or not, that they want to make sure that the reporters who are reporting it are questioned. And I think people do that anyway, but it's a little bit too much, and it seems as if we're favoring some news outlets over other news outlets, and we talk about, you know, some outlets are fake news. It looks like a discrediting campaign that's preemptive to me. I'm very concerned about it.
It's if you like, the best form of defense is offense strategy.
Well, yeah, except, you know, we're supposed to have a White House that's supposed to be transparent. We're supposed to be know what's going on. We're not supposed to control the outcome of news by trying to manipulate reporters. And look, I know hundreds of reporters that reporters won't be, they're not going to be manipulated, and they're going to report the news. I think, look, everybody's biased, and reporters are biased too, but I do think their bias preeminently is for news. And so this action by the administration to sort of cut out the press, which is the people's view of what's going on, I think should concern everyone.
Zerlina, that's right isn't it, though? Are we being a little kind of, you know, holier than thou in the end? All journalists have an opinion. All opinion makers try to control the message.
Well, certainly, but I think that to Rick's point, essentially what this administration is trying to do now is preemptively undermine any news and that they don't like. And right now, what they don't like is for investigative journalists to look into the ties this administration has to Russia, what Michael Cohen was doing, what Felix Sater was doing, what Roger Stone was doing. The list goes on. Paul Manafort, who's in Trump Tower, right? What were these aides that were inside of the Trump campaign, and now some of them are in the administration? What ties did they have to Russia? What communications did they have throughout the campaign? That is what the news media, who was banned from the gaggle this week, had been reporting on, that the White House doesn't like. And so, to Rick's point, I think it is a preemptive strike. It's to undermine the news media before essentially the other shoe drops. And so, to me, it indicates that there's something there that they don't want us to find out. And that's why we need to stay in the streets, stay in the town halls, pushing back on Congress, because that is where the checks and balances are going to come from. Congress needs to do a transparent, independent, and bipartisan investigation. It should be a special prosecutor. It should not be Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, who was a loyal Trump ally and was inside of this particular campaign. And so the people actually have to put the pressure on this administration, the people in Congress, to ensure that we get to the bottom of this. And that's why I think that they're attacking the news media, who will shine the light on what happened.
Joe, we heard from the president's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, on Thursday. People listened closely because it was pretty rare to hear him speak like that. A stark message about the deconstruction of the administrative state and economic nationalism. What do those things mean?
Well, basically, it means that, one, he has the ear of the president, because this is what the president is talking about over and over and over again, and this is what helped the president to win the election in the fall. And he's just going to double down on making sure that Donald Trump carries through and makes good on all of his campaign promises. This, of course, is one way to ensure that you retain your base, and they want to retain the base of the party, the base that got them the win in November. But I don't know that it's any kind of a way to enlarge your base of support, to bring in new people, to reach out to people who right now are feeling disenfranchised. I don't know that this does any of that. It certainly helps you to retain your base, but it doesn't help you to really grow your base. So I think the message going forward is that Donald Trump is going to stick to his campaign promises. He's going to try to deliver on the things he promised the American public and certainly his supporters in the fall campaign. And that's where they're headed, whether anybody likes it or not. And they don't care about the criticism. They don't care about the demonstrations, clearly. That's what they're going to do. And that's Bannon's message, and that clearly seems to be Donald Trump's message as well.
Rick, how did you interpret those words from Steve Bannon? It seems like even with a Republican president, we're still seeing a battle for the heart of the Republican Party.
Well, it'd be nice to see the president get out of campaign mode and get into governing mode. I actually like the president's speech, the second half of it, quite a bit. There's a lot in there that conservatives could rally around and be very excited about. I don't like the term economic nationalism because, as a conservative, you know, conservatives are free traders. And although Steve Bannon said that they were going to have individual bilateral trade agreements, and I could be for that. He talked about national security, and we certainly would like to make sure our country is safe. We've got to go about it the right way.
Zerlina, the president heads to Congress Tuesday. What are your expectations?
Well, I think that it's going to be more of the same from Donald Trump. I mean, it's certainly going to be unorthodox because that's who the president is. But I do think that there's an opportunity for Democrats here, because if he comes out and he's just lying like he has been doing since the beginning of his administration, I think there's a moment for a you lie moment, like we saw with Congressman Joe Wilson with President Obama, who was not lying, by the way, at the time. And so I think there's a moment for Democrats to actually put forth a counter message to what the president is saying. And I think that that's going to resonate with people because essentially his approval ratings are underwater right now. And so we're going to see members of Congress in his own party start to step up and contradict him if they feel like it's going to impact their races, the fact that he's so underwater in his approval ratings.
All right, Zerlina, Joe, Rick, thank you all so much for that enlightening
Thanks,
conversation. Appreciate you joining us again. All right, that'll do.